Ryan Mitchell wiped his sweaty hands on his uniform pants for the fifth time. He was nervous, and he had good reason to be. Today, he would see something no human had ever seen before. "Stop fidgeting, Lieutenant Commander," Admiral Chen whispered. Her stern face showed no emotion, but her eyes were kind. "Remember your training." Ryan nodded and stood straighter. The huge doors in front of them were carved with strange symbols that seemed to move if you looked at them too long. The human group was small, just 6 people from Earth. They stood out among the tall, shimmering aliens called the Vakrishi. These aliens had mastered space travel thousands of years before humans had even left their own solar system. "I shouldn't even be here," Ryan thought. As the most junior officer, he was only supposed to watch and take notes. This was his first big mission since joining the diplomatic corps. The Grand Hall was unlike anything Ryan had ever seen. The ceiling was so high he couldn't see it clearly, and strange lights floated in the air without any visible source. Hundreds of aliens from different worlds stood in groups, their soft voices creating a gentle hum in the massive space. The Vakrishi were easy to spot. They stood nearly 8 feet tall with skin that shimmered like oil on water, changing colors as they moved. Their bodies were thin but strong, and their faces held 12 small eyes arranged in a pattern. They didn't speak with their mouths much. They preferred to use their minds. Ryan felt a slight tickle at the back of his head. The Vakrishi were using telepathy nearby. Humans couldn't read thoughts, but they could feel when the aliens were using their mental powers. "It's starting," Admiral Chen said. The crowd fell silent as a single Vakrishi entered the hall. Even Ryan could tell this was someone important. Her robes flowed around her like water, and the colors of her skin shifted faster than the others. "High Priestess Zareva," someone whispered. The High Priestess walked slowly to the center of the room where a large circular pool glowed with soft blue light. As she approached, the water began to move, swirling gently as if stirred by an invisible hand. Small glowing creatures in the water reacted to her presence, swimming faster and shining brighter. The pool's light grew stronger, casting strange shadows on the walls. Ryan felt the tickle in his head grow stronger. All the Vakrishi were using their telepathy now, communicating in ways humans couldn't understand. He glanced at the other humans and saw them shifting uncomfortably. They felt it too. Something was happening, something important. The High Priestess raised her long, thin arms above the pool. She spoke words in a language that sounded like singing, her voice echoing through the hall. The pool's light pulsed with each word. Ryan couldn't understand what she was saying, but he felt a strange pull toward the pool. His heart beat faster. Admiral Chen gripped his arm suddenly. "Don't move," she whispered urgently. "Something's not right." The tickle in Ryan's head became a buzz, almost like static electricity. The air in the room felt heavy, charged with energy. The High Priestess turned slowly, her 12 eyes scanning the crowd. For a brief moment, her gaze seemed to stop on Ryan. He held his breath. Without warning, the glowing pool erupted with light, shooting beams toward the ceiling and through the crowd. The aliens gasped and moved back. Ryan had been told what should happen next. The light would find the chosen one, always a noble from one of the Vakrishi's important families. This person would become the mate of the imperial princess, an honor beyond measure. But the light wasn't behaving as expected. It moved through the crowd, passing over the tall Vakrishi nobles who stood ready. Instead, to everyone's shock, the beams of light converged on Ryan Mitchell, the junior human diplomat who was never supposed to be more than an observer. The room fell completely silent. For the first time in 50,000 years, the sacred ceremony had chosen an outsider. The light from the sacred pool surrounded Ryan in a bright blue glow. He stood frozen, unsure what to do. Every alien eye in the massive hall was fixed on him. Admiral Chen's face had gone pale. "Don't move," she whispered through clenched teeth. "This has never happened before." The High Priestess Zareva stared at Ryan with all 12 of her eyes. Her shimmering skin changed from peaceful blue to a shocked purple. For several long seconds, no one moved or spoke. Then the High Priestess walked toward Ryan with slow, measured steps. The crowd of aliens parted to let her through. Up close, she was even taller than she had looked from a distance, towering over him by at least 3 feet. "The cosmic will has spoken," she announced. Her voice echoed both in the air and somehow inside Ryan's head at the same time. For the first time in 50,000 cycles, an outsider has been chosen to join with the royal bloodline. Whispers broke out among the crowd. Some aliens hissed. Others made high-pitched sounds that hurt Ryan's ears. A group of Vakrishi nobles pushed forward. One of them, dressed in elaborate armor with gemstones embedded in his skin, spoke in an angry voice. "This is impossible. The human cannot be the chosen one. The sacred pool must have made a mistake." The High Priestess turned to the angry noble. "The cosmic will does not make mistakes. Lord Vexner, you know this." Admiral Chen stepped forward carefully. "High Priestess, we are honored, but perhaps there has been some misunderstanding. Lieutenant Commander Mitchell is not prepared for such a role." The High Priestess shook her head. "There is no misunderstanding. The light has chosen, as it has for 50,000 cycles." From the side of the hall, a new Vakreshi approached. This one was smaller than the others, but wore clothing that sparkled with tiny lights. Everyone bowed slightly as she passed. "The princess," someone whispered. Ryan's heart raced faster. This was Princess Celera, the one whose mate the ceremony was meant to choose. Her skin was the color of pearls with flashes of rainbow colors moving beneath it. Her eyes were not just simple orbs like those of the other Vakrishi. They looked like polished gems that changed color when she moved. She stopped in front of Ryan and studied him without speaking. Her face showed no emotion that Ryan could read. Princess, the angry noble, Lord Vexnor, stepped forward. "You cannot accept this. It goes against all tradition. A human cannot." The princess raised her hand, and Lord Vexnor fell silent immediately. "I accept the choice of the cosmic will," she said. Her voice was soft but firm. Unlike the High Priestess, she spoke only with sound, not with her mind. Ryan found his voice at last. "I don't understand. What exactly does this mean?" Admiral Chen looked like she might faint. "It means, Lieutenant Commander, that you have just been selected to marry the princess of the most powerful alien empire in the galaxy." "But I can refuse, right?" Ryan asked, looking from Chen to the High Priestess. The room grew so quiet that Ryan could hear his own heartbeat. "No," the High Priestess said simply. "To refuse would be to reject the cosmic will. It would end the peace between our worlds." Ryan understood then. 50 years of careful diplomacy between humans and the Vakrishi hung in the balance. If he refused, everything would fall apart. War might even follow. The Princess Celera stepped closer. "Come," she said, "we have much to prepare. The union ceremony will take place in 30 days. As she turned to leave, Ryan saw Lord Vexner watching him with pure hatred in all 12 of his eyes. It was clear the noble had expected to be chosen himself. Admiral Chen gripped Ryan's arm. "For the sake of Earth and humanity, you must do this," she whispered urgently. With no real choice, Ryan followed the princess, leaving his human colleagues behind. He was now alone among aliens, suddenly thrust into a role no human had ever imagined possible. Ryan's new room in the Imperial Palace was bigger than his entire apartment back on Earth. The walls seemed to glow with soft light, and strange plants grew from pots that floated in the air. When he thought about needing more light, the room became brighter. When he felt too warm, the temperature dropped. "The quarters respond to your thoughts," explained a kind voice. Ryan turned to see a smaller Vakrishi standing in the doorway. This one's skin shimmered with gentle green tones. "I am Kirtil, your guide for the preparation period," the alien said with a slight bow. "I will help you learn our ways before the union ceremony." Ryan sighed with relief. At least someone was being friendly. Thank you. I have so many questions. Of course you do, Kirtil said with a sound that might have been a laugh. No human has ever been through this before. Ryan tapped the small device in his ear. My AI assistant, ARIA, is still working, right? I'm allowed to keep it. Yes, Kirtil said. The princess approved it. She understands you will need help understanding our culture. For the next several days, Ryan's life became an endless series of lessons. He learned about Vakrishi history, their complex family structures, their foods, and their customs. Araya, his AI assistant, stored everything and helped him review when he was alone. The Vakrishi have ruled this part of the galaxy for over 20,000 years. Araya's calm voice explained one night. Their telepathic abilities allow them to communicate across vast distances without technology. But they still use spaceships, Ryan noted. Only their minds can travel faster than light, Araya replied. Their bodies still need transport. The lessons were difficult, but eating was worse. Vakrishi food moved on the plate. Some dishes even changed color when touched. Ryan mostly survived on emergency ration bars he had brought with him. Princess Celera remained distant. She met with Ryan only for formal lessons about the ceremony, never staying longer than necessary. She never smiled or showed any emotion he could recognize. Was she supposed to marry Lord Vexnor? Ryan asked Kirtil one day. The green alien's skin darkened slightly. It was expected. They grew up together. Many thought the cosmic will would choose him. That explained the hatred in Vexnor's eyes whenever Ryan saw him in the palace halls. The Vakrishi Lord made no attempt to hide his dislike for the human who had taken his place. Other Vakrishi were no friendlier. Servants communicated with Ryan only through telepathy, which gave him headaches. He caught whispers as he walked through the gardens. Contamination. One group of nobles murmured when he passed. The bloodline will be ruined, said another. One day, Ryan got lost in the massive palace. He found himself in a quiet library filled with glowing crystals instead of books. Curious, he touched one. Images and words flooded his mind. You shouldn't be here, a stern voice said. Ryan jumped back. A tall Vakrishi librarian glared at him with all 12 eyes. I'm sorry, I got lost, Ryan explained. The archives are restricted, the librarian said, but then paused. You saw something in the crystal? Yes, Ryan said. Something about a convergence. The librarian's skin paled. Impossible. Humans cannot read our memory crystals. But Ryan had seen it. Ancient writings about a great convergence that would change the Vakrishi forever, something they both desired and feared. Later that night, Ryan asked ARIA to search her databases for any mention of this convergence. Nothing specific, ARIA replied. But there are references to Vakrishi prophecies about a time of great change. Ryan looked out his window at the 3 moons hanging in the alien sky. For the first time, he wondered if his selection wasn't just a random accident. What if there was a reason the sacred pool had chosen him? As he thought this, the princess's face appeared in his mind. Not a memory, something else. A mental image placed there by someone else. Then it vanished. The Vakrishi were watching him closely, and perhaps some of them could read his thoughts better than they admitted. 2 weeks had passed since Ryan's selection. He sat cross-legged on the floor of his room, eyes closed, trying to focus. Kirtil had been teaching him how to shield his thoughts from telepathic scanning. You're getting better, Kirtil said, but still too easy to read. Ryan sighed and opened his eyes. I'm never going to get this. Humans aren't built for telepathy. Kirtil's skin flickered with gentle colors. Perhaps that is why you were chosen. This comment surprised Ryan. What do you mean? Nothing, Kirtil said quickly. We should continue your lessons. Later, alone in his room, Ryan spoke quietly to Araya. Something strange is happening here. I keep feeling energy shifts in the palace. Can you describe these shifts? Araya asked from the small device in Ryan's ear. Like static electricity, but stronger. And they always happened during my training sessions. Ryan had started mapping these energy patterns with AI's help. They seemed to form a network throughout the palace, centered on the sacred pool where he had been chosen. AI, can you detect any unusual energy readings? Yes, the AI replied. There are fluctuations that match no known human technology. Ryan had begun to notice other odd things too. The Vakrishi, for all their advanced technology and mental powers, sometimes missed obvious patterns. It was as if their shared telepathic field created blind spots. It's like they can't see the forest for the trees, Ryan muttered. The next day, Ryan was scheduled for a ritual bath, a purification ceremony before the upcoming union. Servants led him to a chamber with a pool similar to the one where he had been selected, though smaller. Enter the pool and submerge completely, instructed an older Vakrishi priest. The waters will cleanse both body and mind. Ryan hesitated, then stepped into the glowing water. It felt warm and tingled against his skin. He took a deep breath and went under. The moment his head submerged, his mind exploded with sensations. Images flashed before him. Stars, planets, strange symbols. Then suddenly, another presence touched his thoughts. The princess. For a brief moment, their minds connected. Ryan saw her true feelings: fear, hope, determination. She was trapped in traditions just as he was, but she also had a plan. She believed this unprecedented union might break patterns that had held her people back for thousands of years. Then the connection broke as Ryan surfaced, gasping for air. The human responds strongly to the sacred waters, the priest noted with surprise. That night, exhausted from the ritual, Ryan slept deeply. A noise woke him, a soft click from his door. His military training kicked in immediately. Someone was in his room. Ryan kept his breathing steady, pretending to be asleep. Through barely open eyes, he saw 3 shadowy figures approaching his bed. The moonlight glinted off something metal, a weapon. In one swift motion, Ryan rolled off the bed as a dart hit his pillow. He grabbed a heavy vase and threw it at the closest attacker, who went down with a surprised hiss. The second attacker lunged at Ryan, but years of combat training made the human faster than the Vakrishi expected. Ryan ducked under the alien's arm and struck hard at the spot Kirtil had once mentioned was sensitive, just below their throat. The attacker collapsed, struggling to breathe. The third one backed toward the door, but Ryan charged forward and tackled the alien to the ground. Lights flashed on as guards rushed into the room. Behind them stood Princess Celera, wearing simple robes, her gem-like eyes wide with shock. The attackers wore symbols Ryan recognized. They belonged to a group Kirtil had called purists, aliens who believed in keeping Vakrishi bloodlines clean of outside influence. The princess stared at the 3 unconscious attackers, then at Ryan, who stood breathing hard but unharmed. For the first time, she spoke directly to Ryan using her voice, not telepathy. Perhaps, she said slowly, the cosmic will wasn't mistaken after all. The day after the attack, everything changed. Ryan found himself sitting in a large room with Princess Celera herself. No servants, no guards, just the 2 of them. "We need to talk," she said, privately. Ryan nodded, still surprised by this new development. "About the attackers." "About why they attacked," she replied, "and why you were chosen." The princess moved to a wall and touched a hidden panel. The wall slid open to reveal a small chamber filled with glowing screens and strange devices. "This room blocks all telepathic signals," she explained. "No one can hear our thoughts here." Ryan felt the difference immediately. The constant tickle at the back of his skull, the feeling of Vakrishi minds nearby, was gone. "My people are facing a crisis," Princess Celera said, her gem-like eyes focused on Ryan. "Our greatest strength has become our greatest weakness." She explained that the Vakrishi telepathic abilities, once their most powerful asset, had become dangerous. A strange neural plague was spreading through connected minds, Telepathic contact, once safe, now risked infection. Our scientists can't stop it, she said. The plague adapts too quickly. But what does this have to do with me? Ryan asked. The princess touched another panel. A screen showed strange symbols and patterns Ryan couldn't understand. Ancient texts suggest genetic diversity is the answer, she said. But for thousands of years, our noble families have only bred with each other. Our bloodlines are too similar now. Ryan began to understand. So when the sacred pool chose me, it wasn't random, she finished. The pool was engineered by my ancestors to seek genetic compatibility. It chose you because human DNA might help us survive. Ryan sat back, stunned by this revelation. Does everyone know this? No, she said firmly. Most believe the pool is guided by cosmic forces. Only the royal family knows the truth. The next day, Ryan was taken to a medical facility for testing. Vakrishi scientists examined him thoroughly, taking samples of blood and tissue. When the results came back, the head scientist seemed shocked. Extraordinary, the scientist told the princess. Human DNA contains sequences we've never seen before. Especially this one. He pointed to an image on a screen. What's special about my DNA? Ryan asked. Adaptability, the scientist said. Humans evolved on a planet with extreme biodiversity and environmental challenges. Your DNA learned to adapt quickly. Our people haven't faced such challenges in millennia. The princess turned to Ryan. Your species considers itself primitive compared to ours. You don't have telepathy. Your technology is less advanced. But now we need what you have, genetic diversity and adaptability. Ryan thought about this, but Lord Vexnor and the purists would rather let our species die than accept outside help, she finished bitterly. They call it genetic purity. I call it extinction. As they left the medical facility, Ryan noticed many other Vakrishi watching him with new interest. Word was spreading about his unusual DNA. Later, Kirtil visited Ryan's quarters with important news. You've gained supporters, the green-skinned alien said, especially among the lower castes. Lower castes? Ryan asked. Those whose bloodlines are considered less pure, Kirtil explained. They've always been treated as lesser because of it. Now they see you as proof that genetic difference isn't weakness. It might be salvation. That night, Princess Xelra sent Ryan a message through Kirtil. The ceremony is in 10 days. The message read, Lord Vexnor and the purists will try to stop it. Be ready. Ryan looked out at the alien night sky, thinking about everything he'd learned. The fate of an entire species might depend on him now, on his human DNA. For the first time since being chosen, he felt a sense of purpose. If human adaptability could save the Vakrishi, then he would help, even if it meant marrying an alien princess. The day of the ceremony arrived with bright lights and sounds. The imperial palace was filled with visitors from many worlds. 50 different alien species had sent representatives to watch the historic union between a human and the Vakrishi princess. Ryan stood in his preparation chamber, wearing ceremonial robes that felt heavy on his shoulders. The fabric changed colors with his movements, shifting between deep blue and silver. You look almost Vakrishi, Kirtil said with approval, except for having only 2 eyes. Ryan tried to smile, but his face felt stiff with tension. Is Earth's delegation here? Yes, Admiral Chen and 5 others. They even brought a special device that lets your world leaders watch from Earth. This was both comforting and terrifying. The entire human government would be watching him marry an alien princess. No pressure. Any sign of trouble? Ryan asked quietly. Kirtil's skin darkened with concern. Security is tight, but Lord Vexnor and his followers are in the temple. They had to be invited. His family is too important. A deep bell sounded, vibrating through the palace walls. It's time, Kirtil said. Ryan followed his guide through long hallways decorated with glowing symbols. Guards with crystal weapons stood every few feet, When they reached the main temple doors, Ryan saw Admiral Chen waiting. "Mitchell," she said with a formal nod. "Earth stands with you today." "Thank you, Admiral," Ryan replied. "I hope I don't mess this up." "Just follow the protocol," she said. "And remember, this alliance could change everything for humanity." The massive doors swung open to reveal the largest room Ryan had ever seen. Thousands of Vikrishi and other aliens stood in circular patterns around a central platform. At the center was the sacred pool, glowing brighter than before. High Priestess Zorava stood beside the pool, her robes flowing like water. As Ryan walked forward, the crowd fell silent. He felt every eye on him. Regular eyes, compound eyes, sensory organs he couldn't even name, all watching his every move. The princess entered from the opposite side. Her ceremonial outfit made her look like a living star, radiating light in gentle waves. She moved with perfect grace toward the platform. As the ceremony began, the high priestess spoke ancient words that Aria translated in Ryan's ear. The ritual involved complex gestures and symbolic movements that Ryan had practiced for days. He noticed Lord Vexnor standing with a group of nobles near the front. Their faces showed no emotion, but Ryan felt their hatred like a physical force. The ceremony reached its important moment. Ryan and Princess Selra approached a strange device floating above the sacred pool, the Essence Merger, which would combine small samples of their genetic material in a ceremonial bonding. "Now we will join what the cosmic will has chosen," a high priestess announced. Just as Ryan and the princess reached for the device, chaos erupted. A high-pitched sound filled the room, causing every Vikrishi to grab their heads in pain. The telepathic field that connected them had been weaponized against them. Through the confusion, Ryan saw Lord Vexnor and several purists rushing toward the platform. They held a device emitting the painful sound. The Vikrishi guards couldn't move. They were paralyzed by the attack on their mental network. But Ryan wasn't affected. Without telepathy, he was immune to the weapon. Without hesitation, he leaped forward, using his military training. He tackled the first purist, knocking the alien to the ground. Another swung at him with a crystal blade, but Ryan dodged and landed a hard punch to the attacker's midsection. The purists hadn't expected physical combat. They relied too much on their mental abilities and technology. Ryan fought his way to Lord Vexnor, who held the main device. With a flying tackle that would have made his combat instructor proud, Ryan knocked the Vikrishi Lord down and smashed the device against the floor. The painful sound stopped immediately. The temple guards recovered quickly and surrounded the remaining purists. Ryan stood breathing hard, a cut on his cheek bleeding red blood that looked strange against the blue and purple Vikrishi blood around him. The watching aliens murmured in amazement. They had just witnessed something rare, individual action in a crisis. While the collective Vikrishi had been disabled, one human had acted alone to save the ceremony. Princess Selra approached Ryan, her gem-like eyes wide with something that might have been respect. "The ceremony will continue," she announced to the crowd. As it must. After the attack was stopped, the ceremony continued. Temple guards took Lord Vexnor and his followers away. The high priestess returned to her position by the sacred pool, acting as if nothing unusual had happened. "We will proceed," she announced. Ryan and Princess Selra once again approached the Essence Merger, the strange device floating above the glowing waters. It looked like a crystal sphere filled with swirling mist. "Place your hands on opposite sides," the high priestess instructed. Ryan took a deep breath and put his hand on the sphere at the same time as the princess. The device felt warm and seemed to pulse under his fingers. "Now we join what was separate," the high priestess said. "Now we merge what was distant." The sphere began to glow brighter. Ryan felt a sharp sting in his palm as the device took a small sample of his cells. The princess didn't flinch when it did the same to her. Inside the sphere, two small dots of light, one red, one blue, began to swirl together. As they mixed, they created a new color, a brilliant purple that grew brighter and brighter. The union is complete, the high priestess declared. What happened next shocked everyone, even the princess. The purple light from the sphere expanded suddenly, flowing out in waves that covered the entire temple. As it touched the Vakrishi, they gasped in unison. Ryan felt the light pass through him, and for a brief moment, his mind opened wide. He could feel them. Thousands of Vakrishi minds all connected in a vast network. For the first time, he experienced their telepathic field from the inside. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. So many thoughts, memories, and feelings all shared between them. And they could feel him too, his individual human mind, so different from their collective consciousness. His separate thoughts were like a bright star in their mental sky. Just as quickly as it had happened, the connection faded. The purple light retreated back into the sphere, which now glowed with a steady pulse. The temple was completely silent. Then the high priestess spoke, her voice filled with awe. "The convergence," she whispered. "It is real." Ryan looked at Princess Cellera, who seemed equally surprised. "What just happened?" he asked quietly. "Something from our oldest legends," she replied. "The great convergence, when different minds would join and create something new." Later that day, in the privacy of the Royal Medical Facility, Ryan learned more. The chief scientist ran tests on both him and the princess, checking for changes after the ceremony. "Incredible," the scientist said, looking at screen after screen of data. "The neural plague is retreating. The affected Vakrishi are beginning to heal." "Already?" the princess asked. "How is that possible?" The scientist pointed to images of cells on the screen. The merged genetic material from the ceremony. It created something new, something the plague cannot attack. Ryan looked at the princess. "So it worked? Your plan worked?" She nodded slowly. "Better than I hoped. The convergence was always part of our legends, but I never truly believed it would happen." That evening, Ryan was given the official title of Imperial Consort. He was no longer just a human diplomat, but now part of the royal family. Admiral Chen met with him briefly to offer congratulations from Earth. "You've secured our alliance with the most powerful species in the galaxy," she said, "and possibly saved them from extinction." "It wasn't really me," Ryan said. "It was human DNA." The Admiral smiled. "Don't underestimate what you did today. When their technology failed them, you fought with your hands. When their collective mind was attacked, you fought for yourself. You showed them strengths they've forgotten." Later, alone with Princess Cellera, Ryan asked the question that had been on his mind. "Did you know this would happen? The convergence?" She looked at him with her gem-like eyes. "I hoped," she said simply. "My ancestors engineered the sacred pool to seek genetic compatibility, not just noble birth. But I never imagined it would choose someone from a species we once considered primitive." She touched his hand gently. "Perhaps we became too focused on our advancement. We forgot the strength that comes from diversity and adaptation, things your species has in abundance." For the first time, Ryan felt that maybe, just maybe, this strange union might work after all. 6 months passed quickly. Ryan stood at a large window on Earth, looking out at the new building that had just been completed. The Human Vakrishi Diplomatic Academy was the first of its kind, a place where both species could learn from each other. "Nervous about the opening ceremony?" Admiral Chen asked, joining him at the window. "A little," Ryan admitted. "It's my first time back on Earth since everything." After the union ceremony and the convergence, Ryan's life had changed completely. The genetic therapy created from his and Princess Cellera's merged DNA had been distributed throughout Vakrishi space. Millions who suffered from the neural plague were now recovering. "Your wife arrives in an hour," Chen said, still sounding strange when she said the word wife. Ryan smiled. It felt strange to him too, being married to an alien princess. But over the past months, he and Cellera had developed a genuine connection. What had started as political necessity had grown into mutual respect and even affection. The Academy opening was a big event. Leaders from both worlds would attend. Even Lord Vexnor had been pardoned to attend, though he would be closely watched. The purists had lost much support after the failed attack, as more Vakrishi accepted that genetic diversity had saved their species. Later that day, as crowds gathered for the ceremony, Princess Celery's ship landed at the special dock built just for Vakreshi vessels. Ryan waited as the tall, elegant figure of his wife emerged. Her skin shimmered with pearl and gold colors, a sign of positive emotions among her people. "Husband," she greeted him, using the human term carefully. "Welcome to Earth," he said, bowing in the Vakrishi style. Together, they walked to the Academy building. Humans stared at the princess with awe and curiosity. Few had seen Vakrishi in person before. Before the main ceremony, Ryan received a secure message from Admiral Chen. He read it on his tablet while Xelera was preparing her speech. "Intelligence reports suggest other ancient species are watching us closely." The message read, "They don't like what's happening between humans and Vakrishi." For thousands of years, older civilizations maintained their power by controlling technology and keeping younger species separate. Our alliance threatens this system. Ryan showed the message to Xelera. Her gem-like eyes narrowed as she read it. "They fear what happened to us will happen to them as well," she said thoughtfully. "That human adaptability will challenge their carefully maintained stagnation." She placed her hand on Ryan's, a human gesture she had adopted. "And they should be afraid." The princess straightened her ceremonial robes, which shimmered with light. After all, if the cosmic will chose humanity once, what's to stop it from choosing again? Ryan smiled as they prepared to walk onto the stage. Hundreds of humans and Vakrishi watched as the unlikely couple appeared together. The audience fell silent, waiting to hear what they would say. Ryan looked at the crowd. Two very different species sitting side by side. 6 months ago, he had been just a junior diplomat, observing an alien ceremony. Now he stood as a bridge between worlds. The Vakrishi had learned that their perfect society had nearly led to their extinction. They needed the messy diversity and individual thinking that humans took for granted. And humans had gained access to technology and knowledge beyond their dreams, all because one sacred ceremony had ended with the impossible selection of a human groom. "Ready?" Ryan asked the princess quietly. She nodded, the gems of her eyes reflecting the light. "For new beginnings," she said. Together, they stepped forward to address the waiting crowd, not as human and alien, but as partners in something entirely new. Behind them, the Academy building stood as a symbol of what could be accomplished when different worlds joined together. And somewhere in the stars, other species watched with growing concern as humanity took its place among the ancient civilizations of the galaxy.